The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease, a combination that somehow felt comforting to Serena Collins. She was wiping down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night, her rag leaving streaks across the worn formica. Outside, rain fell hard enough to blur the neon sign hanging above the door, the word family flickering so that the E blinked on and off like it couldn't decide whether to stay awake. Serena sighed and ran a hand through her hair, pulling it into a loose ponytail. Night shifts were always the hardest. Quiet enough to make your thoughts too loud, long enough for loneliness to creep in. At 29, she'd worked enough late nights to know the rhythm of the place by heart. The cook, Hector, slept on a milk crate in the back between orders, snoring softly under the hum of the fluorescent lights. Pauline, her co-worker, had left hours ago, complaining about her knee acting up. That left Serena alone, a lone figure in a fluorescent-lit world of burnt coffee cups and cold floors. The rain tapped steadily on the windows, a soothing rhythm she usually ignored. But then, there was something different. A dull thump against the glass, soft at first like someone had dropped a small package. Serena froze, eyes narrowing. Another thump followed, harder this time, and then, a sound that didn't belong in a quiet diner parking lot. A baby crying. Thin, desperate, insistent. Her heart skipped. She leaned against the counter and peered through the streaked glass. At first she couldn't make sense of it. A man was slumped against the front door, his dark jacket soaked and plastered to his body by rain. One arm was clutched tightly around a bundle of two infants swaddled together, the other hanging limply by his side. His face was pale, pressed against the door, eyes barely open, and then she noticed the blood, so much blood, soaking through the jacket, spreading like a dark warning across the fabric. "Oh my God," Serena whispered, her voice barely carrying over the hum of the lights and the patter of rain. The man lifted his head slightly, meeting her gaze through the glass. His eyes were glazed with pain and fear, pleading silently. He tried to lift his free hand toward the door, failed, and his forehead bumped softly against the glass. Serena's stomach twisted. Instinct took over. She crossed the room in 3 long strides and yanked the door open. The bell chimed sharply, startlingly loud against the rain, but she barely noticed. The man collapsed forward into her arms, heavier than she expected. She braced herself and caught him just in time. The babies cried louder, thin little wails that made her heart ache. Hector stirred in the back, sitting up slowly. "Serena, what's? I need your help. Call 911, she shouted, trying to balance the man and the crying babies. Her arms were shaking, the weight nearly unbearable. One baby kicked weakly, the other clutched at the blanket with tiny, grasping fingers. She focused on them first, pressing them against her chest, whispering soft nonsense sounds. "It's okay. I've got you." The man's voice broke through, hoarse and almost gone. "Help. Don't let them get wet." "I won't," Serena said firmly. "I promise." Hector was on the phone quickly, giving the dispatcher the address with shaking hands. Serena's gaze never left the man's face. His eyes flickered with gratitude, pain, and something else, fear she couldn't name. He tried to lift his arm, reaching toward the babies, and then sank back to the wet floor. "They're safe?" he asked, voice barely audible. "Yes," Serena said, her voice firmer now. "I've got them." Minutes stretched like hours. Rain pounded outside. The babies' cries began to soften under Serena's gentle rocking. She noticed tiny details, the faint birthmark near one baby's temple, the missing sock on the other. Her hands shook as she wiped rain from their tiny faces, humming softly, almost automatically. Finally the sirens came, urgent and insistent. EMTs rushed in, moving with precision. One reached for the man. "Ma'am, we'll take it from here." "No," Serena protested, holding the babies closer. "They have to stay with him. Please." The man's hand shot out and grasped hers weakly. "Thank you, whatever happens, thank you." She nodded, too stunned to speak. They lifted him onto the stretcher. but her mind was only on the babies, their soft cries, their tiny vulnerable bodies against her chest. As they wheeled him away, Serena whispered to herself, "I don't even know your name," but somehow she felt she'd just stepped into something far bigger than herself. If you've ever been on a night shift, completely alone, you know the kind of silence that makes you question every sound. That night, Serena would learn that some noises, like a baby's cry or the thump of a man collapsing, aren't just sounds. They're warnings. And she had no idea what kind of storm she'd just opened the door to. If you're following Serena's story so far, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This night is only getting started. And comment below where you're watching from. Let's see how far her story reaches. The ambulance lights washed the diner in red and white flashes, turning the rain into streaks of color against the night. Serena stood just outside the door, clutching the two babies as EMTs worked quickly around the man on the stretcher. Her arms ached, but she barely felt it. Every muscle in her body was tight, alert, like if she relaxed even a little, something terrible would happen. "Ma'am, we need to move," one of the EMTs said, voice calm but firm. "I'm coming with them," Serena replied without thinking. The EMT hesitated and looked at her more closely, at the soaked uniform, the trembling hands, the babies pressed protectively against her chest. "You family?" "No," she said. "Oh, I'm the one who opened the door." The man stirred on the stretcher, his eyes fluttering open just long enough to focus on her face. His lips moved. "Please," he whispered. "Don't leave them." Something in his voice cut through her. Not desperation alone, responsibility. Fear sharpened into purpose. "I won't," she said quietly. The EMT exhaled through his nose, then nodded. "All right. But you'll need to ride separately. You can follow us to the hospital." Serena turned back inside for a second, heart racing. Hector hovered near the counter, pale and wide-eyed. "I've got an old car seat in storage," he said quickly, already moving. "My sister left it here years ago." "Thank you," Serena said, breathless. They fumbled with the straps in the back of her sedan while rain soaked them both. The babies fussed, tiny cries cutting through the noise of the storm. Serena buckled them in as gently as she could, adjusting the blanket around them. "Be careful," Hector said, handing her keys. "Something about this feels off." She nodded. "I know." The ambulance pulled away first, siren wailing. Serena climbed into her car, hands shaking as she started the engine. She glanced in the rearview mirror at the babies. One stared back at her, wide-eyed and silent, as if already aware that nothing about this night was normal. The drive felt unreal. Rain hammered the windshield. The red lights ahead blurred and sharpened again as she struggled to keep up. Her mind raced, questions piling on top of each other. Who was he? Why was he bleeding? Why was he carrying two babies in the middle of the night? She remembered the way he'd held them even while bleeding. Tight, careful. Like letting go wasn't an option. At a red light, one baby began to cry again. Serena reached back at the next stop, resting her hand lightly against the car seat. "Hey," she whispered. "It's okay. We're almost there." The hospital loomed ahead, stark and bright against the dark sky. Everything moved fast once she arrived. Doors swung open. Wheels squeaked on tile. Voices overlapped. "Who are you?" to the children? "Do they have names?" "Ma'am, please step this way." Serena answered as best she could, her words tripping over each other. "I don't know. I found them with him." A social worker appeared, clipboard tucked against her chest, eyes sharp but not unkind. "So you're not related?" "No," Serena said. "But they can't be alone." The woman studied her for a moment, then sighed. "We'll figure that out. For now, stay close." Serena sat in a plastic chair under harsh fluorescent lights, feeding the babies from hospital bottles. Her fingers felt clumsy, but the babies drank eagerly, their tiny hands curling around nothing. She found herself smiling despite everything. "There you go," she murmured. You're doing great. Hours passed. The storm outside faded into a quiet drizzle. Nurses came and went. The man was rushed into surgery. No one said much about him, only that it had been close. At some point, Serena realized she hadn't checked the time or her phone. It didn't matter. The world had narrowed to this waiting room, these babies, the steady beeping of machines somewhere behind closed doors. She noticed things she hadn't before. The babies were twins but not identical. One calmed instantly when she hummed. The other only slept if her hand rested flat against his back. "You're different people already," she whispered. "Isn't that something?" A nurse approached quietly. "You can't stay forever," she said gently. "Once we know more, child services may get involved." Serena nodded, her chest tightening. "I understand." But she didn't. Not really. The idea of walking away felt wrong in a way she couldn't explain. Across the hall, a pair of elevator doors opened. Two men stepped out, dressed too neatly for the hour. Their eyes scanned the floor with purpose, stopping briefly on Serena and the babies before moving on. A chill crept up her spine. She didn't know why, but she had the sudden, unmistakable feeling that this night wasn't finished with her yet. And whoever that man was, he wasn't just someone who'd been shot. He was someone people were already looking for. The waiting room felt impossibly quiet after the storm had passed, though the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. Serena sat in one of the stiff plastic chairs, bouncing one of the babies gently on her lap while the other rested against her chest, sleeping at last. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee, hospital coffee, weak and bitter. Every time the door opened, a draft of cold air made her shiver, pulling her attention back to the world outside the circle she'd created for the twins. Hours had passed since the man, bleeding and fragile, had been wheeled into surgery. Serena tried to track time but couldn't. Minutes bled into each other, measured only by the baby's small movements, the soft whimpers and sighs, and the occasional footsteps in the hallway. She hummed low, almost unconsciously, a tune she remembered from childhood. One baby stirred, eyes fluttering open, then relaxed against her chest. The other stirred but refused to calm until she laid her hand gently flat on his back. The little hand gripped her fingers, and she felt an odd surge of warmth despite the exhaustion pressing on her bones. Then she noticed the elevator doors slide open again. This time, a nurse and a doctor appeared, moving quickly toward the surgical wing. Serena tried to catch their eyes, hoping for an update, but the doctor barely glanced at her, his face drawn and serious. Her chest tightened. She didn't know him. She didn't know the story behind the blood or the babies, yet she felt responsible. And yet, responsibility wasn't the right word. Protective. Fierce. Protective, she realized, fit better. The man had reached out to her before surgery, just for a moment. "Don't leave them," he had whispered. That was all. No explanations, no name. But it had been enough to root her in place, to anchor her in a decision she didn't fully understand. Serena adjusted the blankets around the twins, noticing how delicate they were. Tiny pink ears, wisps of hair damp from rain, lips puckered like they already knew how to cry for help. She realized abruptly that the night had shifted her life, even though she barely knew it. "Ma'am?" a nurse said, gently tapping her shoulder. Serena looked up, startled. "The man's family is here, or at least people claiming to be connected. You'll need to step aside for a moment." Her stomach dropped. "Family?" she echoed. She hadn't seen anyone come in except those two men earlier, who'd scanned the room and left as quickly as they'd appeared. The nurse shook her head. "We don't have full details yet. Just be ready." Before Serena could respond, the sliding doors at the entrance opened again. Rainwater still clung to the shoulders of two sharply dressed men, even though the storm had passed hours ago. Their coats were dark, neat, expensive, and somehow threatening in a way that made the hair on her arms stand on end. One of them stopped near her, eyes sharp and calculating. "Miss Collins?" he asked. She froze, clutching the twins a little tighter. Yes, she said, voice low. We're friends of the man who was brought in, the other added, glancing at the babies. We're here to make sure everything is handled. Serena's heart skipped a beat. Handled? Her mind raced. Handled how? She asked, trying to sound calm, though her voice trembled. The first man smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. We just need to ensure the children are safe. You've done well so far. Safe. Serena repeated. They're already safe. I'm the one. You're doing more than most would, the first man interrupted. They were in a bad situation before. The social worker, clipboard clutched tightly, stepped between them. Are you related to the children? She asked sharply. The men exchanged a look. No, one said. But we represent their father. Serena's stomach sank. Something about that word, represent, didn't sit right. Her mind raced through possibilities, most of them alarming. Father? She asked slowly. Where is he? Is he okay? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned closer to Serena and lowered his voice just enough for her to hear. He trusted you. That matters. Before she could respond, they straightened and walked toward the elevators, disappearing behind the sliding doors. Their presence left a strange stillness in the air, the kind of silence that presses down on your chest and makes your heart beat faster. Serena exhaled shakily. The twins stirred at the tension in her body, whimpers rising again. She rocked them gently, humming once more, trying to soothe both the babies and herself. The storm outside had ended, but inside, Serena realized the night had only just begun. Somewhere in the hospital, the man she had saved was waking from surgery. And somewhere in the shadows of this quiet city, secrets were waiting to unravel, secrets that would pull her deeper than she could have imagined. And as she sat there, clutching the babies, she had the sinking feeling that nothing about this night was what it seemed. The hospital corridors smelled faintly of antiseptic and cold metal, a smell that always made Serena's stomach twist. She carried the twins carefully, their tiny bodies warm against her chest, wrapped snugly in blankets the nurses had provided. Every step echoed on the linoleum floor, each sound magnified in the emptiness of the night wing. The storm had passed hours ago, but the tension in the air still felt heavy, as though the rain had left more than water behind, it had left unease. Serena found a small waiting area near the surgical wing, tucked away from the main lobby. She set the babies down gently on a row of stiff plastic chairs, adjusting the blankets around them. One baby stirred, eyes wide and alert, while the other fussed, tiny fists pounding lightly against the soft cotton. She hummed low, almost unconsciously, the same tune that had calmed them before. It worked again, slowly, the tiny whimpers fading into quiet sighs. She leaned against the wall, running a hand through her damp hair, trying to make sense of everything. The man, the one she had pulled from the rain, was in surgery. He had refused to give a name, refused to explain anything, but she could feel the weight of his desperation. There had been something in the way he held those babies, even bleeding and exhausted, that left an impression she couldn't shake. Protective, terrified, and yet, controlled, almost disciplined in the way he gripped them. Hector's words from earlier echoed in her mind. Something about this feels off. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but now, sitting there in the dim hospital light, she understood. This wasn't just an accident, and it wasn't random. Whoever this man was, the situation had a depth she didn't yet grasp. A nurse approached quietly, glancing at the babies. "They're stable for now," she said. "You're doing well." Serena nodded, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. "Thank you. I couldn't leave them." The nurse gave a small, knowing smile. "Most people wouldn't be able to handle it the way you have. But be prepared. There's going to be someone coming for them soon. Possibly more than one person. Hospital protocol means we'll involve child services if needed." Serena's chest tightened. She couldn't imagine letting go of these babies, not after what she had seen, not after feeling the raw need in their tiny cries. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. She looked up, startled, and saw two more figures rounding the corner. They were different from the men she had seen earlier. The earlier ones had seemed sharp and precise, almost like shadows moving through the hospital. These two were slower, more deliberate, and their eyes were fixed on the twins as if they had been following them the entire night. "Ma'am?" one of the men asked, voice steady. "You're Serena Collins?" "Yes," she replied cautiously, tightening her grip on the babies. "We're here on behalf of the man who was brought in earlier," the other said. "We just want to make sure everything is handled correctly." Serena frowned. "Handled correctly? The babies are safe. I'm keeping them warm. They're fine." The first man's gaze didn't waver. "We appreciate that, but you need to understand, the situation is complicated. Their father has many responsibilities and many enemies. This is not a simple matter." Her stomach sank. "Enemies? What are you talking about?" The second man leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We're not supposed to discuss details here. But know this, the choices you make tonight have consequences far beyond what you can see." A chill ran through her spine. Her hands instinctively tightened on the blankets. One of the babies shifted, sensing the tension, and whined softly. Serena hummed again, soothing them even as her mind raced. The men stepped back, giving her a brief, calculating look before moving toward the elevators. "He trusted you," the first man said quietly, almost like a warning, "and that matters." They disappeared behind the sliding doors, leaving Serena with more questions than answers. She didn't know who these men were exactly, or what kind of danger the father faced. She didn't know why he had been out in the rain, bleeding, holding the babies. And she certainly didn't know what they meant when they said the choices she made tonight would have consequences beyond her understanding. Serena took a deep breath, rocking the twins gently, trying to calm both them and herself. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed louder now, almost oppressive, but she kept talking softly to the babies. "It's okay," she murmured. "I've got you. No one's going to hurt you." A nurse peeked around the corner. "He's stable for now. You can stay, but please don't move him again until doctors say so." Serena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She had no idea what she had stepped into, but she knew one thing. She wasn't leaving these babies. Not tonight. And somewhere beyond the walls of the hospital, she could feel it. The night wasn't done with her yet. A faint sound of footsteps echoed from the hall outside the waiting area, quick and measured. Serena stiffened, eyes darting toward the door. She didn't recognize the rhythm of the steps, but instinct told her it was important. Whoever it was, they were coming for her. And maybe for the babies too. The sound of footsteps in the hospital corridor echoed like a warning, bouncing off the sterile walls. Serena's grip on the twins tightened. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and for the first time since the night began, fear crept into her chest. The babies stirred, sensing her tension, little fists brushing against her chest as if they too were aware something was coming. She scanned the waiting area. Empty chairs, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the faint scent of antiseptic hung thick in the air. The elevator doors remained closed, leaving only the soft rolling sound of approaching wheels, someone coming down the hall, purposeful and deliberate. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, rocking the twins gently. Her voice trembled slightly, but the baby settled again, lulled by the soft, repetitive motion. It was strange how even in the midst of danger, the small routines of care could feel grounding. Then the footsteps paused. Serena held her breath. The hospital had quieted. Even the distant beeping of machines seemed muted. A shadow appeared at the corner, and she could make out the silhouette of a man, tall and broad-shouldered, moving toward her. "Miss Collins?" The voice was familiar, though there was a weight to it she couldn't place. "I need to talk to you." She held the babies closer. "Who are you?" she asked cautiously. He stopped a few feet away, glancing at the twins. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, didn't waver. I'm someone who wants to make sure these children are safe, he said carefully. Your intentions are good, but you need to understand the situation fully before moving forward. Serena frowned. I'm keeping them alive and safe right now. Isn't that enough? The man's lips pressed together. For now, yes. But there's more at stake here than you realize. He shifted slightly, leaning against the wall, and Serena noticed a faint scar running along his temple, partially hidden under his hair. Something about him screamed danger, though he made no sudden moves. Explain, she said, her voice firmer, though her pulse was racing. I need to know who I'm protecting these children from. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Their father is not an ordinary man. He has enemies, powerful ones. People who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone in his way, including these children, if it suited their purpose. Serena's chest tightened. Enemies? What? What did he do? The man shook his head slightly. It's complicated. For now, just know that these babies' lives are fragile, and the choices you make tonight can tip the scales in one direction or another. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the warning settle deep in her stomach. Everything had seemed chaotic already, blood, rain, an unknown man in need, but now there was a layer beneath that she hadn't anticipated. Danger she couldn't even see clearly. The man studied her for a long moment, his gaze flicking from her to the twins and back. He trusted you, he said quietly. And that trust is not something that can be replaced. Before Serena could respond, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and two nurses appeared, looking between the hallway and the waiting area. Miss Collins, I need you to step aside, one of them said gently but firmly. Serena glanced down at the babies. Their small hands twitched against her chest, one baby's eyes half open, sleepy but alert. She tightened her grip. I can't. I won't let them be alone. The man took a cautious step forward. I understand. Just be careful. You're in a situation bigger than you know. And then, as quietly as he had appeared, he turned and walked toward the elevators, disappearing with calm purpose. Serena watched him go, the sound of his footsteps fading into the distance. She felt a knot in her stomach tighten. Something about the way he left felt deliberate, calculated, like a warning that this night was far from over. The babies fussed again, tiny whimpers rising. Serena hummed the same soft tune she had been using all night, her voice steadying as she rocked them. She glanced around the waiting area, scanning for anything unusual, another shadow, a movement out of place, but everything appeared normal. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that the night had more surprises in store. Somewhere in the hospital, beyond the walls she could see, someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to act. And Serena, exhausted and tense, knew she couldn't let her guard down, not even for a second, because in a few hours nothing would be the same. Morning crept into the hospital without asking permission. It slid through narrow windows and bounced off polished floors, turning the harsh white light softer, almost forgiving. Serena noticed the change not by sight, but by the way the night staff thinned out and new voices took over, brighter, quicker, less patient with lingering questions. She hadn't slept. Not really. Every time she closed her eyes, one of the babies shifted or made a small sound, and she snapped awake, heart racing. The twins were calmer now, fed and clean, their cries reduced to soft noises that barely broke the steady hum of the ward. Serena sat with her back against the wall, knees drawn up, arms aching from holding them for so long. A nurse approached with a clipboard and a tired smile. You've been here all night. Serena nodded. They needed someone. The nurse glanced at the babies. They still do. But things are going to change soon. Serena's chest tightened. What do you mean? Before the nurse could answer, a woman in a gray blazer stepped into the waiting area. She moved with practiced confidence, heels clicking softly, her expression calm but alert. A badge clipped to her jacket caught the light. Serena Collins? The woman asked. Yes. I'm Linda Harris, she said, extending a hand. Child Services. The words landed heavy. Serena shook her hand, her grip hesitant. They're okay, she said quickly as if defending herself. They've been fed. They slept. I didn't let them out of my sight. I can see that, Linda replied, her eyes softening slightly as she looked at the twins. And I appreciate it. But I need to ask you a few questions. They sat at a small table near the wall. Serena answered everything honestly, how she found the man, the rain, the blood, the way he'd held the babies like letting go wasn't an option. Linda took notes but said little. Do you know the father's name? Linda asked eventually. Serena shook her head. No. He didn't want to give it. That's unusual, Linda said carefully. Serena swallowed. Is he going to be okay? Linda paused. He survived surgery. But that's all I can say for now. Relief washed over Serena, followed immediately by unease. What happens to the babies? That depends, Linda said. On legal guardianship. On whether family comes forward. On circumstances. Serena looked down at the twins. One slept deeply, lips parted. The other stared at the ceiling, eyes tracking the lights like he was memorizing the world already. I don't want them to disappear, Serena said quietly. Linda met her gaze. Neither do I. A doctor passed by and stopped briefly. You're the woman from last night? He said to Serena. The gunshot was clean, but whoever did it knew what they were doing. Serena stiffened. Gunshot, she repeated. So it wasn't an accident. The doctor shook his head. No. And judging by the angle, he was protecting someone when it happened. Serena's grip tightened around the babies. Later that morning she was allowed a brief visit. The room was dim, curtains drawn. The man lay pale against the white sheets, shoulder heavily bandaged, machines beeping steadily beside him. His eyes opened when he sensed her presence. You stayed, he murmured. Yes. His gaze shifted to the babies. They're all right? They are, Serena said. For now. He closed his eyes briefly, relief washing over his face before something darker settled in. People will come, he said. They'll say things. Promise things. I've already met some of them, Serena replied. That got his attention. His eyes snapped open. What did they say? That you trusted me, she said. And that this situation is bigger than I understand. A faint, humorless smile crossed his face. That's true. Why? She asked. Why bring them into this? He hesitated, jaw tightening. Because keeping them away would have been worse. Before she could ask more, a nurse stepped in. Time's up. As Serena turned to leave, the man spoke again, his voice low but firm. If anyone asks you to hand them over without papers, don't. Her heart pounded. Why? Because, he said, eyes locking onto hers, not everyone who smiles wants them alive. Serena left the room shaken, the weight of his words pressing down on her. She didn't know who to trust anymore, not the men in suits, not the system, not even her own instincts. And as she returned to the waiting area, she noticed Linda Harris speaking quietly with a uniformed officer near the entrance. The officer glanced toward Serena, then toward the babies, and Serena realized the next decision wouldn't be hers alone. The hospital had begun to feel like a maze of corridors, fluorescent lights, and whispered warnings. Serena carried the twins through the hallways, her arms aching but steady, moving them from one temporary resting spot to another. The earlier tension hadn't dissipated, it had only thickened like fog clinging to her chest. Every glance over her shoulder, every step echoed with the weight of uncertainty. She found a quiet corner near the pediatric wing, a small seating area tucked away from most of the foot traffic. The twins were restless again, tiny hands clenching and unclenching as if testing the world around them. Serena settled them on her lap, humming softly, the same tune she had repeated all night. One baby leaned against her chest, eyelids drooping, while the other stayed alert, scanning the room with wide, curious eyes. Footsteps approached, a softer rhythm this time. Not the sharp, deliberate steps of the men from earlier, but something lighter, careful. A young nurse appeared, clipboard in hand, eyes kind but serious. "Serena," she asked, "do you have a few minutes? I need to check on the twins before anyone else arrives." "Of course," Serena replied, adjusting the blankets. "They've been sleeping most of the night." The nurse examined them quickly but gently, checking vitals and noting their reaction to touch and sound. Serena watched her hands, fascinated by the ease and care with which she worked. Even in chaos, some people moved like calm currents through storms. "They're healthy," the nurse said finally. "Except for a bit of dehydration from the rain, but we've already given fluids. You did well keeping them calm." Serena exhaled. "I just did what felt right." The nurse smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's enough." For a moment, Serena let herself relax, rocking the twins and humming. But the calm didn't last. The sliding doors at the end of the hallway opened again, and Serena's heart skipped. Two more figures stepped inside, sharply dressed, professional, their eyes scanning the room. "Miss Collins?" one of them asked. Serena stiffened, holding the twins closer. "Yes." The taller of the two stepped forward, voice measured. "We're here on behalf of the man you rescued last night. He wishes to thank you personally for your actions." Serena frowned. "You mean he wants to see me?" The man shook his head slightly. "Not exactly. He wanted to ensure you understand the gravity of the situation. That's all." Serena's stomach churned. "Gravity? What does that mean?" Before they could answer, a nurse approached quickly. "I'm sorry, but the pediatric wing is closing for a procedure. You'll need to move the children." Serena glanced at the twins. One was asleep again, the other quietly watching her with wide eyes. "They can't go anywhere without me," she said. The man's gaze softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "That's understood. But know this, wherever you move them, the night hasn't finished with you yet." Serena's pulse quickened. The words were heavy, loaded with meaning she didn't yet grasp. She moved the twins to a small empty room nearby, closing the door gently. The soft click echoed through the quiet hall, leaving a lingering sense of isolation. She laid the babies down carefully on a padded bench, ensuring they were comfortable and covered. Then she sat beside them, leaning against the wall, letting herself finally breathe. Her mind raced, trying to piece together everything that had happened. The rain, the blood, the strangers in suits, the warning from the man in surgery. Every detail felt like a thread, tangled and impossible to unravel. A small, almost human moment broke through the tension. One of the babies reached for her hand, tiny fingers curling around her index finger. Serena smiled faintly, brushing her thumb across the back of his hand. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise I'll figure this out." But even as she spoke the words, a shiver ran down her spine. She didn't know who she could trust. The men in suits, the hospital staff, the police, they all carried pieces of a puzzle she hadn't seen. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was waiting, watching, ready to act. Serena hugged the twins close, feeling the warmth of their bodies against hers. The storm outside was over, but inside, tension coiled like a snake, ready to strike at the slightest movement. She knew the night's events were far from over. And then, faintly at first, she heard it, a soft, deliberate knock at the door. The knock at the door was soft but deliberate, echoing in the small, quiet room. Serena's heart leapt into her throat. She pressed the twins closer to her chest, feeling their warmth against her, tiny fists brushing against her arm. The older one's eyes were wide, alert, tracking every movement with an almost uncanny awareness. "Who is it?" Serena called, trying to keep her voice calm, though the tremor betrayed her fear. No answer. Only silence, broken by the faint hum of fluorescent lights above. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She glanced at the door, the small window revealing only shadow. Whoever it was wasn't giving their identity freely. Swallowing hard, Serena forced herself to her feet, careful not to jostle the babies. She inched toward the door, each step measured, her hand hovering near the handle. Her mind raced. Was it the man's associates? Someone connected to the shooters? Or could it be someone else entirely, someone she didn't even know existed yet? She opened the door just enough to peek through. A man stood there, tall, broad, dressed in a long dark coat that still carried drops of rain from the earlier storm. His face was partially hidden in shadow, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, locked onto hers immediately. "Miss Collins," he said, voice low and measured. "We need to talk. About the twins." Serena's stomach twisted. "You're someone who can help keep them safe," he interrupted, raising a gloved hand slightly in a gesture meant to calm. "But time is short. We don't have long before others find out where they are." She froze. Her mind spun with questions. Who was he? Why did he know about the babies? And why did his tone make her feel as if even the walls of the hospital couldn't protect them? "Safe from what?" she asked, her voice steadying with forced authority. "I've kept them fed dry and warm. They're fine." He stepped closer and she took an instinctive step back, careful not to jostle the babies. "Fine is relative," he said. "They're fine for now. But the people after their father don't see fine. They see opportunity." The words landed like a punch to her chest. She gripped the twins tighter. "Their father? What are you saying?" His eyes flickered, a brief shadow passing across his face. "You don't know the full story. And maybe it's better you don't. But understand this, whoever shot him last night, whoever is still out there, they want more than revenge. They want control." Serena's mind raced. She had been caught in chaos from the moment she opened the diner door to find him bleeding in the rain. And now the pieces were falling into place, more frightening than she could have imagined. The man's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "He trusted you. That's why they haven't come after the children yet. But that trust can only hold for so long. You must be careful." Serena swallowed, trying to steady her voice. I don't even know his name. I barely know anything about him. Why am I involved in this?" "Because," the man said quietly, "the babies are safe because of you. And for now that's what matters. But others will come, and not all of them will ask nicely." A sudden noise in the hallway, a metallic clang, made both of them tense. The man's eyes flicked to the door. "I have to go," he said. "But I'll return. Do not leave. And do not speak to anyone who isn't authorized. Do you understand?" Serena nodded, heart hammering. "Yes." He gave her one last measured look and walked toward the hallway. Serena watched him go, the weight of his warning pressing down on her chest. She shut the door behind him, pressing her forehead against the wood for a brief moment, letting herself feel the exhaustion she had pushed aside all night. The twins stirred, one yawning and stretching small limbs against her chest. Serena smiled weakly, adjusting their blankets. "Okay," she whispered. "We'll just keep going. One step at a time." But deep down she knew that night had changed everything. The world she had returned to, the familiar fluorescent lights, the quiet hospital corridors, even the hum of machines, was no longer safe. Shadows lingered everywhere, and someone somewhere was already planning the next move. And Serena realized with a shiver that she might have stepped into something far larger than herself. A storm that wouldn't let her walk away no matter how much she wanted to. The hours crawled by in the hospital's quiet corners. Serena sat in the small room she had claimed, rocking the twins gently, humming the same low tune she had been repeating since the night began. One baby dozed against her chest, breathing soft and even, while the other kept small, curious eyes open, scanning the room as if already aware that the world was full of threats and wonders alike. The night's chaos had passed, but its weight lingered. Serena's mind refused to rest. The man she had saved, the strangers in suits, the warning about unseen enemies, it all pressed on her chest like a heavy stone. She had no answers, only questions that grew sharper with every passing minute. A sudden buzz from the nurse's station drew her attention. Linda Harris, the child services worker, approached, clipboard in hand. Her expression was calm but professional, the kind of calm that could make even the most frantic person pause. "Serena," Linda said, voice low. "We need to discuss temporary guardianship. Hospital policy requires us to ensure the twins are placed somewhere safe while their father recovers." Serena stiffened. "I'm keeping them safe right now. That should be enough." Linda's eyes softened. "I know you've done a lot for them. But legally you can't just hold on to them indefinitely. There are procedures, paperwork, and protections." Serena shook her head. "They can't go anywhere else. Not while their father. Not while—" She stopped herself, realizing she didn't fully understand the dangers, but she knew they were real. Linda hesitated, studying her. "I understand. But the moment we don't follow protocol, you put them, and yourself, at risk." Serena's chest tightened. She had expected obstacles, but the cold bureaucracy of child services felt like another layer of danger she hadn't accounted for. I can't leave them," she whispered, voice trembling. Linda nodded, almost sympathetically. "Then we need to figure out a way to keep them safe without breaking the rules. But you have to be honest with me. Can you do that?" "I will," Serena said firmly. She glanced down at the twins. "Whatever it takes, I'll keep them safe." The moment of calm shattered with a loud bang from the hallway, metal against tile, sharp and startling. Serena's heart leapt. The twins stirred immediately, whimpering softly. She rocked them quickly, murmuring reassurances, but the sound had echoed far enough to make her freeze in place. "Stay here," Linda said sharply, moving toward the hallway. "I'll check it out." "No," Serena said instinctively. "I can't." Linda placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "You stay. I'm trained for this. Trust me." Serena nodded reluctantly, swallowing hard, feeling the weight of fear pressing down again. She adjusted the blankets around the twins, brushing their damp hair from their tiny foreheads, and hummed the same low tune. One of them relaxed slightly, the other continued to frown in confusion, sensing the tension in the room. Minutes passed. Serena counted silently, each tick of the clock making the seconds feel longer. Then footsteps approached, not Linda's measured, confident steps, but softer, more deliberate. Her stomach twisted. She peeked around the edge of the door and saw a figure in a hooded jacket, moving slowly toward the room. Something about the movement set off alarms in her mind. Before she could react, the door clicked softly. The figure froze, looking toward her. Serena's breath caught, and then the hood fell back. It was him, the man she had saved. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharper now, darker, almost unreadable. He carried himself with the same controlled precision she had noticed in the rain, but there was an edge now, a tension that hadn't been there before. "Serena," he said quietly, "we don't have time. They're closer than you think." Her pulse raced. "Who?" "The ones who shot me," he said, voice low and urgent. "And anyone who wants them, the babies, gone to manipulate me. They'll try to take them if they can." Serena's mind spun. Her protective instinct flared hotter than ever. "Then we won't let them," she said firmly. He nodded, studying her for a long moment. "Good. You need to understand, though, this isn't just a hospital problem anymore. This is bigger. Much bigger." The twins stirred at his voice. He crouched slightly, careful not to startle them. One reached out a tiny hand and he let her grip it gently. Serena felt a chill run down her spine. Here was a man she barely knew, a stranger who had survived being shot and carried his babies through the rain, and yet he inspired a strange, unsettling sense of authority. "I have to move them," he said quietly, standing. "We can't stay here. They'll find us." Serena's stomach dropped. "Move them? Where?" He gave her a faint, almost grim smile. Somewhere safe. Somewhere hidden. I'll explain everything once we're out of immediate danger. But you need to trust me. She looked down at the twins. Their small eyes blinked up at her, unaware of the dangers, unaware of the chaos surrounding them. And she realized, with a clarity that made her chest ache, that she couldn't let them go. Not now, not ever. Okay, she said, swallowing hard. I trust you. The man nodded once, sharply, and gestured toward the door. Then we move now. No delays. Serena adjusted the blankets, secured the babies in her arms, and followed him into the hallway, every nerve on high alert. The hospital suddenly felt like a labyrinth, full of shadows and unseen threats, and she knew this was only the beginning. Serena's footsteps echoed down the long, dim hospital corridor, each step measured, cautious. The twins were bundled tightly in her arms, one sucking gently on a pacifier, the other nestled against her shoulder, eyes wide and alert. The man she had saved walked just ahead, moving with the fluid, precise gait of someone who had been trained to survive. Every muscle in his body radiated control, even as the tension in the hospital seemed to press down on them both. Where are we going? Serena whispered, glancing toward him, but he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he paused at a corner, listening intently before nodding. First, we get them out of the hospital, he said quietly. It's no longer safe here. People know where they are, and I can't risk exposure, not with them. Serena's stomach tightened. Exposure to who? Those who want the children, he said bluntly. And anyone connected to me. It's complicated, but what matters is that we leave now. They moved quickly, taking side corridors and stairwells rather than the main elevators. The hospital, once a place of sterile calm, now felt like a labyrinth of potential threats. Every shadow, every echo of footsteps made Serena's heart race. The twins stirred at her tension, tiny hands brushing against her cheek as if trying to soothe her. When they reached a service exit near the rear parking lot, the man glanced around cautiously. There, he said, nodding toward a black SUV parked under the shadow of an overhang. Rain from the earlier storm still glistened on the roof, making it almost blend with the night. Serena hesitated. I don't know if I should. He turned, eyes intense. You're already part of this. There's no should anymore. Only what we do next. Trust me. Can you do that? She swallowed, heart pounding. Yes. The twins fussed as they approached the vehicle, so Serena hummed the familiar tune again. One baby relaxed almost immediately, while the other clung tighter, sensing the uncertainty in her voice. The man opened the rear door carefully, gesturing for her to place the babies inside. Once they were secured, he got in the driver's seat, the engine purring quietly as he started the car. Serena sat beside him, heart still racing, hands resting protectively over the twins' car seats. You're calm under pressure, he said quietly, eyes on the road. Most people wouldn't have done what you did last night. I didn't have a choice, Serena said, voice low. They needed me. I couldn't leave them. He nodded, not as if surprised, but as if confirming something he already knew. That instinct will keep them alive. But instincts alone won't protect them forever. The drive was tense. Every passing car, every shadow under streetlights, made Serena flinch. She couldn't stop replaying the events of the night. The rain, the blood, the gunshot, the strangers in suits, the cryptic warnings. Now it felt like the threads of that night were pulling her into something far bigger, far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Finally, the SUV turned onto a quiet residential street, far from the hospital. The man parked behind an unremarkable townhouse, blending almost seamlessly into the row of similar buildings. He turned to Serena. This is where they'll be safe for now, he said. I've arranged temporary protection. You won't be alone. Serena exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders just slightly, but unease remained. Who will watch over them? She asked. He gave her a faint smile, sharp but reassuring. People you won't see. Professionals. But your role? You stay close. Keep them calm, keep them fed, keep them human. That's your job now. Do you understand? She nodded. Yes. He hesitated, glancing at the twins. Serena, I need to tell you something important. About me. About who I am. It changes everything you think you know about last night. Her heart skipped. What is it? He paused as if measuring the weight of his words. I'm not just someone who was shot last night. I'm involved in things you couldn't imagine. Dangerous things. And they know who I am. That's why this night, your life, is about to change forever. Serena's pulse raced, mind spinning. The protective instinct that had driven her through the night now collided with fear. She tightened her grip on the twins, feeling their warmth, their trust, and realized that whatever this man was, whatever danger lay ahead, she couldn't back down. Not now. And as the SUV idled in the dark, quiet street, a sense of foreboding settled over her. The night wasn't done. It was only beginning. The townhouse looked ordinary in a way that made Serena uneasy. Beige siding. A small porch light humming softly. A row of identical doors stretching down the block like nothing important had ever happened there. Yet the man cut the engine and stayed still for a moment, eyes scanning reflections in the side mirror, the darkened windows across the street, the quiet curve of the road. Stay close to me, he said at last. And if anything feels off, you don't argue. You move. Serena nodded, though her throat felt dry. She unbuckled the twins, lifting them carefully. One stirred, letting out a tiny sound that made her heart tighten. She whispered soothing words, pressing her cheek to the baby's soft hair. Inside, the townhouse smelled faintly of cleaning solution and stale coffee. It was furnished, but barely. Neutral couch. Small table. No pictures. No personal touches. The kind of place meant to be temporary, forgettable. Someone lives here? Serena asked. Sometimes, the man replied. He locked the door behind them, then checked it again. Tonight it's yours. He moved through the space with practiced efficiency, opening doors, glancing into rooms, checking windows. Serena watched him, the way his shoulders stayed tense, the way his hand hovered near his side as if expecting trouble to burst through the walls. You do this a lot, she said quietly. He stopped. Just for a second. Then he nodded once. More than I'd like. Serena sat on the couch, settling the twins against her. The quiet was loud. Too loud. It made every thought echo. You said you'd explain, she said finally. About who you are. He leaned against the opposite wall, arms crossed. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Not wounded tired. Soul tired. My name isn't important, he said. Names get people killed. What matters is that I run things most people don't want to think about. Networks. Territory. Money that doesn't come from clean places. Serena's breath caught. She stared at him, the words settling slowly, heavily. Your crime. A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. That's one way to put it. Her grip on the twins tightened. Her instinct screamed at her to stand up, to run, to get as far away as possible. But the babies were warm. Real. And the man's voice, though frightening, wasn't dishonest. That's why they shot you, she said. Yes. And the babies? Their leverage, he replied calmly. Against me. Against people who answer to me. If they disappear, I become unpredictable. If they're hurt, he stopped, jaw tightening. That would start a war. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Serena shook her head slowly. I didn't sign up for this. No, he said. You didn't? And that's exactly why I trust you. She laughed softly, the sound sharp with disbelief. That doesn't make sense. It does, he replied. Everyone in my world wants something. Money. Protection. Power. You didn't want anything. You just acted. Serena looked down at the twins. One had fallen asleep, lips parted slightly. The other watched her, eyes dark and steady. What about their mother? She asked quietly. The man's gaze shifted away. For the first time, something cracked. She's gone. The way he said it told Serena everything she needed to know. This wasn't a recent loss. It was a wound that never closed. Silence settled again. Outside, a car passed slowly, tires hissing on damp pavement. Serena felt her pulse spike until the sound faded. "You said people would protect us," she said. "They will," he replied. "But there's something else you need to know. The danger isn't just coming from outside." She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Someone inside my organization knew where I was last night. That means someone close to me decided I was disposable." Serena's stomach dropped. "So this isn't just random enemies?" "No," he said. "This is betrayal." A soft knock echoed suddenly through the townhouse. 3 slow taps. Controlled. Deliberate. Serena's heart slammed against her ribs. The twins stirred, sensing the shift in her body. She stood halfway, panic flashing across her face. The man raised a hand, signaling silence. He moved toward the door, every step careful. He didn't reach for the handle right away. Instead, he leaned in, listening. The knock came again. Same rhythm. He glanced back at Serena, eyes sharp. "If this goes wrong," he whispered, "you take the back door and run. Don't look back." Her mouth went dry. "What about you?" His answer was quiet and certain. "I'll buy you time." He reached for the door. And as the lock clicked, Serena realized with a cold rush that whoever stood on the other side already knew exactly where to find them. The door swung open slowly, revealing a man in a dark hoodie, his face partially obscured by shadow. Serena's heart skipped a beat, the twins instinctively pressing closer to her chest. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, but the man from the rain, her protector, stood firm, eyes locked on the intruder. "Evening," the intruder said, voice low and calm. "I believe we're looking for someone." The man's jaw tightened, and Serena noticed a flicker of calculation in his eyes. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The intruder smiled faintly, just enough to be unsettling. "No one. Freelance. I heard you had 2 children in your care and, well, I get paid to make sure they're moved safely. That's all." Serena's pulse spiked. Her grip on the twins tightened instinctively. "Moved safely? What does that mean?" The intruder's gaze swept over the room casually, almost arrogantly. "Let's just say if they come with me they'll be protected." Her stomach dropped. Protected? From who? The man from the rain stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Serena and the twins. "From me," he said flatly. "And that's why they won't be going anywhere with you." The intruder's eyes flickered. "Interesting. I was told you were the type to disappear after last night." "I don't disappear," he replied evenly, voice cold and steady. "And anyone who thinks they can take the children will learn that quickly." Serena could feel the tension radiating from him like heat off metal. The room seemed to shrink, every shadow sharper, every sound amplified. The twins stirred at the edge of the tension, tiny fingers brushing Serena's arm. She hummed softly to calm them, but her own pulse was racing. The intruder's smile widened, almost amused. "You're not the only one with secrets, though, are you?" The man's eyes narrowed. "What do you know?" The intruder stepped closer, hands visible, movement deliberate and controlled. "Enough to know that someone inside your organization, someone you trusted, is already working against you. And that means the children are valuable. Very valuable." Serena's mind spun. The warnings, the strangers in suits, the betrayal he had mentioned, it was all coming together, but even worse than she had feared. The man's jaw tightened, voice low. "You leave now or you'll regret it." The intruder's smile remained. "I don't think it's that simple." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the townhouse. Serena's heart leapt as the twins whimpered softly, sensing the noise. The intruder's head turned, and the man from the rain took advantage of the distraction. He moved first. Quick, precise, almost predatory. Within moments, the intruder stumbled backward, tripping over a rug, the element of surprise on his side. Serena watched, wide-eyed, as he scrambled to regain footing. "You need to go," the man said sharply, pointing toward the door. "Now." The intruder glared but finally retreated, slipping out the door like a shadow dissolving into night. Serena exhaled shakily, pressing herself against the wall, holding the twins closer. The man turned to her, voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Whoever sent him, they're testing us. Seeing if we're ready." Serena shook her head, heart still racing. "Testing us? What? What do they want from us?" He knelt beside the twins, brushing a strand of hair from one's forehead. "Control," he said simply. "And the only way to have it is through them. Through me." A silence fell over the room, thick and heavy. Outside, the night remained calm, but inside, Serena felt the storm building all over again. She realized then, holding the twins, that there was no turning back. Whatever life she thought she had, whatever safety she had known, it was gone. And she would need every ounce of courage, every instinct, just to survive the next hours. Because the people coming for the children weren't finished. And neither, it seemed, was the man who had brought them this far. The night outside had settled into a heavy, almost suffocating quiet. Inside the townhouse, Serena moved slowly, rocking the twins as the man from the rain patrolled the room. The earlier intruder had vanished, but the tension lingered, thick enough to taste. Serena couldn't shake the feeling that every shadow held a secret, every sound a warning. "Why are they targeting him?" she asked quietly, voice almost a whisper. "I mean, why involve the babies?" He paused mid-step, leaning against the wall, eyes distant. "Because he's not just anyone. And because power isn't measured by what you have, it's measured by what others are willing to fight for. The children, they represent leverage, loyalty, and weakness all at once. If I lose them, I lose everything." Serena's chest tightened. "Everything? And if they take the babies, what happens to him?" "He wouldn't survive it," he admitted softly, tone heavier than she expected. "Not physically. Not mentally. Not emotionally. He's human, Serena. And humans break when the right pieces are pulled." Her grip on the twins tightened. "Then we can't let that happen. We won't let that happen." He nodded, a shadow of a smile passing briefly. "Good. That's why I trust you. You act without thinking of gain. You act for them." The sound of a car door slamming outside made Serena startle. The twins fussed and she hummed softly, rocking them to calm. The man's eyes flicked toward the window, expression taut. "Stay here. Keep them calm." Serena nodded, chest pounding. She hugged the babies tightly, murmuring the same lullaby she had started the night before. Their small bodies were warm against hers, breathing steady, trusting. She wished she could be that simple, that unaware of the dangers closing in. Minutes dragged by like hours. The soft hum of the HVAC system, the distant drip of water somewhere outside, the faint ticking of a clock, every sound seemed magnified in the quiet. Serena felt every heartbeat, every tiny stir of the twins, every thrum of tension from the man moving through the townhouse. Then, just as she was beginning to think the intruder had truly gone, a soft click echoed from the back door. Her stomach dropped. She froze, eyes wide. The twins sensed her tension immediately, squirming slightly against her chest. The man appeared at the edge of the hallway, his expression unreadable but his eyes sharp, alert. "They're inside," he said, voice low. Serena's heart raced. "Who?" "Multiple people," he replied. "And they're not just after me anymore." A sharp bang came from the back of the house. Serena screamed softly, instinctively covering the twins' ears. The man reacted instantly, moving toward the noise with the precision of someone who had done this before 1,000 times. "Stay here," he commanded. Serena nodded, gripping the babies tighter. From her corner, she watched as shadows moved in the dim light, figures slipping silently, efficiently. The man confronted them, words exchanged too quietly for her to hear. Then a sudden movement, a flash of metal, a muffled shout, and the figures fell back. Serena's pulse raced. Her breath caught in her throat. She pressed the twins closer, whispering, "Shoo, it's okay, it's okay." The man reappeared seconds later, bruised but composed. "They were testing us again," he said. "Seeing how prepared we are. It won't be the last time tonight." Serena shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "Why are they doing this? Why all of this danger?" He crouched beside her, brushing a strand of hair from one of the baby's faces. "Because I have enemies I can't always see. People I thought I trusted, who've decided I'm disposable. And they know the only way to hurt me is through what I love most." Serena swallowed hard, her mind racing. The gravity of the night, the stakes, the danger, it was all more intense than she had imagined. But she realized something. The fear didn't paralyze her. It sharpened her, focused her, made every decision count. "Then we fight," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We protect them, no matter what." The man studied her, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "Exactly. And if we survive tonight, that will only be the beginning." Outside, the night stretched dark and endless. But inside, Serena hugged the twins close, feeling their small hearts beating against hers, knowing that she would do whatever it took to keep them safe. And as the shadows lingered just beyond the walls, one thing was clear. The night's danger was far from over, and the next move could change everything. The townhouse was thick with tension, so heavy it pressed against Serena's chest like a physical weight. The twins rested against her, one asleep, the other dozing lightly, and she held them as though sheer will could shield them from the world outside. But the man from the rain, her protector, moved through the space with silent precision, checking every door, every window, every potential point of entry. "Do you ever rest?" Serena asked quietly, voice barely above a whisper. He paused, leaning against the wall near the kitchen, arms crossed. "Rest is a luxury I haven't had in years," he said, eyes scanning the shadows. "Right now, survival comes first. Then rest if we get the chance." Serena's stomach tightened. "You make it sound normal. Like this is just life." He gave a humorless chuckle. "Normal is a lie. Life, this is just reality. And reality doesn't care if you're ready for it." Her mind drifted back to the intruder, the shadows moving outside the townhouse, the constant threat she had felt since the rain-soaked night. Every moment since then had been a test of instincts, courage, and endurance. She looked down at the twins and wondered how a life so fragile could become the center of so much danger. Suddenly, a soft vibration from her phone on the couch startled her. She glanced at the screen, an unknown number. Hesitation clawed at her, but she answered anyway. "Hello," she said cautiously. A distorted voice came through, low and menacing. "You're playing a dangerous game, Miss Collins. You've inserted yourself where you don't belong. Know that every step you take is being watched." Serena's fingers trembled. "Who is this?" The line went silent for a moment, then the voice returned. "Someone who knows everything about last night. About him. About the children. And soon, you'll understand why trusting him was your first mistake." The call ended abruptly. Serena's hands shook. She looked down at the twins. One yawned, still asleep, unaware of the storm of threats surrounding them. The other blinked up at her, small hands curling instinctively. Her protector stepped closer, eyes narrowing as he noticed her expression. "What happened?" "They know," she whispered, voice trembling. "Someone knows about the children. About us. They called me." He exhaled sharply, jaw tightening. That was inevitable. He moved to the door, checking locks and windows with quick, precise motions. "We have to move. Now." Serena's pulse raced. "Move? Where?" "It's the middle of the night." "Somewhere safer," he replied. "Somewhere temporary, somewhere untraceable. Every second we stay here increases the risk." Her mind whirled. The twins were heavy in her arms, their warmth a small comfort in the storm of her fear. I don't even know if I can keep up, she admitted, panic threading her voice. He crouched in front of her, eyes meeting hers with a rare intensity. You can. You're already keeping them alive. You're stronger than you think. But you have to trust me completely? Serena swallowed, nodding slowly. She glanced down at the twins, small and fragile, and made a decision. Okay. I trust you. He nodded, standing quickly. Good. Let's go. They moved through the townhouse like shadows themselves, avoiding the front entrance, slipping out a side door Serena hadn't noticed before. Outside, the night was quiet, eerily calm after the storm earlier. The air was damp, carrying the faint scent of rain and asphalt. The SUV awaited, engine idling quietly. The man helped Serena settle the twins safely into their seats, buckling them securely. Every movement was deliberate, careful, like a practiced ritual. As Serena climbed in beside him, she realized that there was no going back. The danger wasn't just outside, they carried it with them. In every shadow, every quiet corner, every whisper of wind, it lurked. And she knew with chilling certainty that tonight would mark the beginning of something far larger than she had imagined. The engine roared softly, tires humming against the wet pavement, and as they disappeared into the night, Serena couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was already following. The SUV moved through quiet streets, the rain from earlier leaving a slick sheen on the asphalt. Serena sat in the back seat with the twins, one curled against her chest, the other clutching her finger with tiny, determined hands. The rhythmic hum of the tires was the only sound she could focus on, though her mind raced with every detail of the past hours. The gunshots, the intruder, the threats over the phone, the revelation about his true identity. The man drove with a quiet intensity, eyes scanning the streets, hands steady on the wheel. Serena watched him from the corner of her eye, noticing the way he flinched at distant sounds, the way he checked mirrors constantly, the subtle tension in his shoulders. She realized that despite his controlled exterior, he had lived nights like this before, and each one had left its mark. "Where are we going?" she asked finally, voice low, careful not to startle the twins. "Somewhere they can't find us," he replied. "Somewhere temporary, hidden. I have contacts who owe me favors. People who understand discretion." Serena nodded, though unease tightened her chest. "And the twins, will they be safe there?" "They will be," he said without hesitation, though his eyes betrayed a shadow of worry. "But it won't be permanent. We have to keep moving until the immediate threat is gone." The twins stirred, one letting out a soft whimper. Serena hummed gently, swaying them slightly, murmuring comforting words. She realized she had become the anchor in this storm, the constant in a night full of chaos. Without her calm presence, the children would sense the danger more keenly. Minutes stretched into hours. Serena's eyes drooped despite her alertness, exhaustion tugging at every muscle. The man glanced at her occasionally, noting her fatigue but saying nothing. He didn't need to, she was here and she was holding the line, keeping them safe. Finally, the SUV slowed, turning down a narrow street lined with tall, unmarked townhouses. The place was almost nondescript, blending perfectly with the surrounding buildings. The man parked in front of one of the houses, scanning the area before cutting the engine. "This is it," he said. "Temporary. Safe for now. But stay alert. They could still be watching." Serena nodded, carefully lifting the twins. The door opened and the man led her inside. The interior was sparse but clean, furniture arranged with practical precision, small touches indicating it was used as a temporary safe house often. "Here they'll be protected," he said, helping Serena settle the twins on a couch that had been converted into a makeshift bed. "For now you rest, you feed them, you keep them calm. That's all that matters." Serena sank into a chair nearby, relief and tension mingling in her chest. The twins began to drift into sleep, soothed by her steady presence. For the first time in hours she allowed herself to breathe. But the man remained standing, scanning windows and doors, a silent sentinel. "We're not out of danger," he said quietly. "Not by a long shot. Whoever sent that intruder, they're still planning. And now they know we're moving." Serena's chest tightened. "Then what do we do?" He met her gaze, eyes dark and intense. "We survive. We wait for the right moment. And we don't make a mistake." The words settled like a shadow over the room. Serena realized that the night's events were far from over. Every heartbeat, every quiet second, carried the weight of the unknown. She hugged the twins, feeling their small bodies press against hers, and whispered promises she didn't know if she could keep, but had to try. And as the man stood silently by the window, watching the street for signs of danger, Serena understood something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. The world she had stepped into was unforgiving, ruthless, and dangerous. But for these children, she would face it all. Outside, the night remained calm, but Serena knew better. Danger was patient, and it was already circling. Morning came slowly, soft light filtering through the blinds, painting stripes across the safe house floor. Serena stirred awake on the couch, careful not to jostle the twins, who slept soundly, their small chests rising and falling in rhythm with the morning calm. For a fleeting moment she allowed herself to imagine that maybe, just maybe, they were safe. But the brief peace vanished the instant she caught the man's silhouette moving through the room, coffee in hand, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. Serena knew from the night before that danger didn't rest, and neither could he. She adjusted the twins in her arms, brushing back their soft hair. "Morning," she whispered softly, trying to sound calm even though her stomach still knotted with tension. He glanced at her, expression unreadable. "Sleep while you could. It may not come easy again." Her heart tightened. She had expected exhaustion to make her vulnerable, but with him she felt like every moment of rest was borrowed, like the world outside could claim it back at any second. "Do you even eat?" she asked quietly, a touch of humor hiding in her words. "You've been awake all night." A faint smirk touched his lips, almost imperceptible. "Not enough," he admitted. "But hunger is the least of my problems." Serena nodded, eyes dropping to the twins. She realized that her life had shifted completely. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a protector, a shield for two tiny lives who had no choice but to trust her completely. And the man? He had drawn her into a world so dangerous, so ruthless, that even thinking about it made her chest tighten. He leaned against the counter, finally speaking in a low, careful tone. "We have to move again today. The people outside, they're probing. Looking for patterns, trying to see where we'll go next." Serena swallowed hard. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere more secure. Somewhere they won't expect," he replied. "But you have to understand, no place is perfect. Even the best defenses can be breached. That's why you remain alert and the twins stay close." Her stomach twisted. "This is exhausting. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this." He studied her for a moment, eyes sharp. "You're stronger than you think. You've been tested and you've passed. That instinct to protect, it's rare." Serena shook her head, almost laughing softly. "Rare maybe, but terrifying too. I feel like I'm constantly one step from disaster." He nodded slowly. "Good. That fear keeps you alive. But it can't rule you. You must act, not react. Anticipate. Protect." A soft cry from the twins broke the moment. Serena jumped slightly, hurrying over to soothe them. One had wet through his diaper, the other was fussing at hunger. Her hands moved automatically, feeding, changing, rocking, every motion instinctive, precise, protective. The man watched silently, never interfering but observing. Serena realized then that he trusted her completely. That trust, heavier than any weapon, was now a bond forged in danger. And it terrified her because she understood. If she faltered, if she made a mistake, it wouldn't just be her life at risk. Hours passed in a tense rhythm, preparing the twins, keeping them calm, ensuring the safe house remained secure. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every shadow held a potential threat. Yet, in the midst of this chaos, she found herself feeling capable, resilient, fierce. Finally, the man came over, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "We leave in 10 minutes. Pack only what you need. Move fast, move quiet." Serena nodded, adjusting the twins. Her mind raced with every lesson she had learned in the past 2 nights. Trust her instincts, stay alert, protect the children at all costs. She realized that from this moment on, her life was irrevocably intertwined with theirs. As they prepared to leave the safe house, a shadow moved outside the window, subtle, almost imperceptible. Serena's heart skipped. She looked at the man, who caught the movement immediately, his posture taut and ready. "They're close," he whispered. "And they're learning fast." Serena swallowed hard, hugging the twins to her chest. The reality hit her with icy clarity. The danger wasn't just outside. They were already inside this web, circling closer with every move they made. And as the SUV waited quietly in the driveway, engines humming softly, Serena realized that their journey was far from over. The night, and the fight to protect these innocent lives, was only beginning. The SUV slipped through the quiet streets with near-perfect precision, headlights cutting thin streaks through the early morning mist. Serena sat in the back, twins nestled in her arms, feeling the rise and fall of their tiny chests. Sleep still clung to them in soft, uneven waves, but she knew it wouldn't last long. Every shadow outside, every reflective window, made her flinch, alert to even the smallest movement. The man drove in silence, jaw set, eyes scanning the mirrors constantly. He had stopped speaking hours ago, letting the road, the tires, and the rhythm of movement dictate the pace. Serena, however, could not rest. Her mind replayed every detail of the past days. The gunfire, the intruder, the betrayal from within his organization, the anonymous threats that had hinted at danger at every turn. Finally, he glanced at her from the corner of his eye. "We're approaching a new location," he said, voice low but steady. "It's temporary but safer than the last." "Temporary?" Serena echoed, gripping the twins tighter. "How long is temporary? Days? Hours?" He didn't answer immediately, eyes returning to the road. "Long enough for you to breathe. Long enough to plan the next step. But never long enough to let your guard down." Serena's stomach twisted. She had hoped for even a sliver of reprieve, a moment to feel some safety. Instead, the reality of their situation settled on her like ice. The SUV turned down a narrow alley, one that seemed almost forgotten by the city itself. A nondescript warehouse loomed ahead, its brick walls mottled in gray, graffiti faintly visible in corners. The man stopped at a side door, checking the surroundings carefully before speaking. "Inside," he said, nodding toward the door. "We're not alone there, but it's controlled. Cameras, guards, safe rooms. You'll see." Serena nodded silently, her nerves taut. She adjusted the twins, whispering softly to keep them calm. Their small hands clutched at her clothing instinctively, seeking comfort she could only partially provide. The man led the way inside, every step measured, every sound controlled. The warehouse interior was dimly lit, a strange blend of industrial starkness and functional security. Corridors extended into shadow, surveillance monitors flickering with images of different rooms. In one corner, a woman nodded at them silently, stepping aside as if to say, "You're expected." Serena's breath caught. She had expected this place to be more chaotic, more dangerous. Instead, it was organized, clinical almost, a fortress in disguise. "They'll be safe here," he said, guiding her toward a secure room. "For now. But you need to understand, safe doesn't mean untouchable. The people outside, they're persistent. They adapt." Serena swallowed hard, her mind racing. "And the betrayal, inside your organization?" He paused, looking at her gravely. "Still a threat. We've only scratched the surface. Whoever decided to target me personally is powerful, patient, and willing to manipulate anyone to achieve their goal. The twins began to stir, sensing the tension. Serena rocked them gently, humming softly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She realized that they weren't just innocent bystanders anymore, they were pawns in a game far larger than she could have imagined. "I don't understand how anyone could care so little about children," she murmured. He looked at her sharply. "They don't. They care about control, influence, leverage. That's the world I live in." Serena's stomach clenched. "Then why are you letting me be here? Why involve me?" He softened slightly, a rare flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. "Because you act differently. You care first. That instinct, it's rare. And right now it's the one thing that can keep them alive." The twins yawned, one opening eyes that reflected curiosity and trust. Serena felt a surge of determination. No matter the danger, no matter the threat, she would protect them. She would face whatever came next. The man's voice broke through her thoughts. "Stay alert. Observe everything. And above all, don't underestimate anyone." As he moved to check the perimeter again, Serena realized something chilling. The warehouse might be fortified, monitored, controlled, but outside the enemy was patient, persistent, waiting, and the next move could come at any moment. The warehouse smelled faintly of metal and disinfectant, a strange combination that made Serena's stomach twist. The twins were settled on a small cot in the corner, swaddled securely, their tiny fingers curling around hers as they drifted in and out of sleep. The man moved like a shadow through the warehouse, checking monitors, security systems, and doors with the meticulous precision of someone who had lived this life for far too long. Serena's hands itched to do something, anything, to feel like she was contributing beyond holding the twins. "Can I help?" she asked quietly, voice low so as not to break the fragile calm. He glanced at her, eyes dark but not unkind. "Yes. Watch them, keep them calm, and observe everything. Notice patterns, doors, cameras, schedules. Knowledge is safety." She nodded, her chest tightening with both fear and resolve. For the first time, she realized that her role was more than passive protection. She had to be vigilant, aware, prepared to act if the slightest threat emerged. Hours passed in tense quiet. Serena watched the monitors as the man checked the perimeter again, silently taking note of the warehouse staff and security patterns. Occasionally she would hum softly to the twins, who responded with small, trusting movements. The contrast between their innocence and the danger surrounding them made her heart ache. Suddenly, a soft beep from one of the monitors caught her attention. A figure had approached the outer gate, someone she hadn't seen on any of the prior surveillance feeds. Serena's pulse spiked immediately. She looked at the man, who was now crouched by another set of cameras, monitoring the same feed. "They're close," he said softly, voice low but urgent. "Too close for comfort." Serena's hands shook slightly as she adjusted the twins, murmuring calming words to them even as her mind raced. "Who is it?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But anyone approaching this close has a purpose. And it's not benign." Minutes stretched, each one a knife edge of tension. Then, through a monitor, Serena saw something that made her stomach drop. The figure carried something small and wrapped in cloth, another child. The man's eyes narrowed sharply. "They've brought a child," he said, voice hard, controlled. "Someone is testing me, showing that they can manipulate what I care about most." Serena's heart pounded. "What do we do?" He took a deep breath. "We wait, observe, and act only when necessary. Panicking will get them inside. Strategy keeps them out." The intruder outside lingered, moving cautiously as though aware that the warehouse had eyes everywhere. Serena felt trapped between fear and the fragile safety of the walls around her. She hugged the twins tighter, realizing just how delicate the balance between safety and catastrophe truly was. Then, without warning, a series of rapid knocks came at the side door, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. a pattern she instantly recognized from the intruder before. Her heart leapt. The man moved immediately, eyes scanning the door, muscles coiled like a predator. "They know we're inside," he said, voice low and steady. "And now they're testing our reaction time. Stay with the children. Stay calm. This is only a probe, but probes become attacks if mishandled." Serena's pulse raced, but she whispered to the twins, her voice soft and soothing, humming the same tune that had calmed them the previous nights. Her own hands trembled, but she could feel the man's presence near her, silent and watchful, ready to act. The knock stopped as abruptly as they started. Silence returned to the warehouse, heavy and deliberate. Serena dared not breathe too loudly. She looked at the man, who gave her a brief, almost imperceptible nod. "They're testing limits," he said. "They're gauging my reaction. And soon, they'll strike for real." Serena hugged the twins to her chest, feeling both fear and resolve. The threat was no longer abstract. It was immediate, close, and cunning. And for the first time, she understood that survival wouldn't come from luck. It would come from instinct, trust, and courage, qualities she never knew she possessed. Outside, shadows lingered near the warehouse walls, waiting. Inside, Serena held the twins tightly, listening to the soft rhythm of their breathing, knowing that the night's real test was yet to come. The silence after the knocking was worse than the noise itself. Serena sat on the cot, the twins pressed against her chest, her ears straining to catch even the faintest movement beyond the warehouse walls. The fluorescent lights hummed above, indifferent to the danger hovering outside. Across the room, the man stood perfectly still, eyes fixed on the security monitor. His expression had changed. It wasn't just alert now. It was calculating. "They're escalating," he said quietly. "This isn't random intimidation anymore." On the screen, the figure near the outer gate shifted position. The bundle in their arms moved slightly. The cloth slipped just enough to reveal a tiny hand. Serena's breath caught. "They really brought a child," she whispered. "Yes," he replied, jaw tightening. "And that means whoever is orchestrating this knows exactly where to strike. They're trying to provoke me. Force a mistake." Serena's mind raced. Could it be someone from your organization? He didn't answer immediately. His silence was answer enough. A sharp buzz cut through the room. One of the secure lines on the wall lit up. He crossed the space in 2 strides and picked up the receiver. "I'm listening," he said. A distorted voice flowed through the speaker. "Calm. Controlled. Amused. You've always been predictable," the voice said. "Protective. Emotional when it comes to family." Serena felt her stomach drop. She couldn't hear every word, but the tone alone sent a chill down her spine. "You're making a mistake," he replied evenly. "Walk away." A soft chuckle crackled through the line. "No. You're the one who made a mistake. You survived. And now we have to correct that." The line went dead. The warehouse felt colder. Serena swallowed hard. "They're not just testing you anymore, are they?" "No," he said, eyes dark. "They're preparing to force a choice." As if on cue, the monitors flickered. One screen went black. Then another. Serena's heart slammed against her ribs. "What's happening?" "They're cutting external feeds," he said sharply. "They've either hacked the perimeter or compromised someone inside." Inside. The word echoed in her mind like a warning bell. Betrayal. Again. A loud metallic clang rang from the far end of the warehouse. Not a knock this time. Not a probe. Something heavier. Deliberate. The twins began to cry, sharp and frightened. Serena immediately pulled them closer, whispering desperately, rocking them despite her own trembling hands. It's okay," she murmured, though she wasn't sure who she was trying to convince. Footsteps echoed in the outer corridor. Multiple. He moved toward a secured cabinet, retrieving something Serena couldn't fully see but understood immediately. He was preparing for a real confrontation now. "You need to listen carefully," he said, turning to her. His voice was calm but urgent beneath the surface. If they breach this room, you take the emergency exit behind that panel. He pointed to a section of the wall Serena hadn't even noticed before. There's a tunnel. It leads 2 blocks east. You don't stop. You don't look back. Her throat tightened. And you? His eyes met hers. Steady. Certain. I'll hold them here. Another crash shook the building. Dust drifted from the ceiling beams. The twins cried harder, their tiny bodies trembling against her. Serena's mind screamed at her to panic, but something inside her shifted instead. The fear didn't disappear. It focused. No, she said suddenly. His head snapped toward her. This isn't negotiable. You said they want to provoke you, to make you emotional. If you stay here alone, that's exactly what you'll be. Her voice shook, but she kept going. We move together. Strategically. Not reactively. For a split second, he stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Another explosion of sound, closer now. The outer door gave way with a violent screech of metal. They're inside, he said quietly. The hallway lights flickered. On the last remaining monitor, shadows flooded through the entrance. Organized. Prepared. Not amateurs. Serena adjusted the twins against her chest and stood up, legs trembling but steady enough to hold her weight. Tell me where to go, she said. He stepped beside her, no longer shielding her, but aligning with her. Stay behind me. When I say move, you move. Heavy boots thundered down the corridor toward them. The safe house was no longer safe. And as the first shadow stretched across the warehouse floor, Serena realized the next few seconds would decide everything: who survived and who didn't. The hall was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence. The heavy kind. The kind that presses against your chest and makes your heart beat louder than it should be. She stood at the center of the stage, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. The lights were warm but blinding. Beyond them, shadows of faces watched her. Some curious, some ashamed, some confused, and one filled with tears. He sat in the front row. The billionaire. The man who once didn't even see her. Now he couldn't look away. She swallowed. For a moment she considered stepping back. But then she remembered the cold nights. The humiliation. The whispers. The pain she swallowed just to survive. And she lifted the microphone. Her voice was soft at first. I used to think being invisible was safer. The audience leaned in. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I endured, if I didn't fight back, life would eventually become kind. She paused. But silence does not protect you. It only protects the people hurting you. A ripple moved through the room. Some shifted in their seats. She continued. I was told I wasn't enough. Not pretty enough. Not smart enough. Not worthy enough. Her voice cracked slightly. But the truth is, I was surrounded by people who couldn't see value unless it was loud, expensive, or powerful. Her eyes slowly found him. He lowered his head. The same man who once laughed. The same man who once doubted. Now fighting tears. I don't stand here today because someone rescued me, she said. I stand here because I finally rescued myself. The words landed like thunder. Silence. Then a single clap. Then another. And suddenly the entire hall erupted into applause. Not polite applause. Proud applause. Some people stood. Then more. Until the entire room was on their feet. She blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. For years she felt small. Now the room felt small compared to her strength. The billionaire slowly stood. His hands trembled as he clapped. Not because she succeeded, but because he finally understood. After the event ended, the crowd surrounded her. Journalists, supporters, young girls with shining eyes. She hugged them, smiled at them, encouraged them, and then he approached. No cameras, no audience, just them. For a second, neither spoke. I was wrong, he said quietly. 3 simple words. but they carried years of weight. I judged you before I understood you. She nodded. I know. He looked at her, not as an employee, not as someone beneath him, but as an equal. You've built something incredible, he continued. You didn't just change your life. You changed mine. She studied his face. The arrogance was gone. In its place, humility, growth, regret, and something else, respect. I don't need apologies anymore, she said softly. I needed growth, and I see that. He exhaled. For the first time he felt smaller, but not in a humiliating way, in a human way. Thank you, he whispered, for not becoming bitter. She smiled gently. Pain can make you bitter, she said, or it can make you better. I chose better. They stood there for a moment longer, not as enemies, not as savior and saved, but as two people transformed by truth. Outside the evening air was cool. She stepped out alone. The city lights stretched endlessly. Once she dreamed of escaping this city. Now she owned her place in it. Her phone buzzed. A message from a young girl who attended the event. Because of you, I'm not giving up. She stared at the screen, and finally tears fell. Not from pain, from fulfillment. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was lighting paths for others. And somewhere behind her, the billionaire watched from a distance. Not to control, not to supervise, but to learn. Because sometimes the greatest transformation in a story isn't the rise of the underestimated. It's the awakening of the powerful. And tonight, both happened. The girl who was once overlooked became unforgettable. The man who once believed he knew everything realized he knew nothing. And in that realization, he finally became worthy of the respect he once demanded. The story didn't end with revenge. It ended with growth, with dignity, with legacy. And as she walked forward into her new life, she didn't look back. Not because she forgot, but because she no longer needed to.